Okay, now is the good time to segue into Dominion and Smartmatic have gone on the aggressive and started issuing demands for retractions and corrections. Now, first things first, a while back, because this is where you're going to have to see people who were intellectually focused on an objective and thought they knew the answer. Everyone was saying if what they're saying is wrong, Dominion should be suing, and if what they're saying is wrong, Smartmatic should be suing. And the fact that they're not suing is evidence that the accusations are legit. Now, I said at the time, I think that's superficial reasoning, because it is not the case that there's a reverse inference by virtue of not suing. I still think you're innocent until proven guilty, and it's not because someone hasn't sued you for defamation that what you said is somehow true. That's backwards logic. And by the way, if you want to see the risks of what happens just if you want to sue for defamation because you disagree, look at Johnny Depp. Now Smartmatic is going on the offensive. They're sending letters of demands out, demands for retractions to Fox. If Fox News didn't get one, they did their own fact check retraction of their own volition, potentially to avoid it. But they're going after people now and going after them aggressively. You'll get into it a little more, but my personal prediction is retraction or no retraction. I don't think Dominion would ever sue, because I think it would expose them to depositions, which I think they don't want. And so if I get a letter, there's some people are going to say if Sidney Powell gets a letter demanding a retraction, she's going to willfully not comply, hope that they sue so that she can then depose. So legitimacy of the claim, legitimacy of the demands, the strategy, and what do you think is going to be any outcome?
I think they now have to sue. I also think they've been waiting in wait to sue. So I think they wanted as many false accusations to be made, because that would substantiate and expand and deepen their lawsuit capabilities. The problem here was this was not some small, little company that was never going to have the legal resources to wage legal war. Dominion is owned, and people get confused. Dominion does not own Smartmatic. Smartmatic does not own Dominion. They have no corporate overlapping ties of any kind at all. People are getting basic stuff confused. Like it's basically saying, well, way back, Smartmatic bought this company, Sequoia, and then years later, Dominion bought the same company. That doesn't make them related. That doesn't make them overlap, and that doesn't mean their software is interactive. They have both completely denied it. There's no evidence of it. They've been competing with each other for the better part of a decade. They've sued each other for the one time they worked together in the Philippines. So there's just no evidence of these claims. The no election stuff goes off to some foreign server. That never happened. There was no raid of any place in Germany. There are no servers related to the election in Germany. That was all false. Some of these ex-generals that they're listening to are nut jobs. One of them, the whole hammer and scorecard nonsense that people connected to the national security world, but that are very independent Trumpists, they've discredited that for years. They've been pointing out this was all nonsense gibberish made up by some grifters and fraudsters. And these one of the extra generals that everybody loves, that Sidney Powell loves, that Steve Bannon has put on too many times, though he's facing enough trouble, I suppose, so he doesn't got to worry about a libel suit to tag onto it. But is a guy who was a big Iraq War WMD hoaxer. So, and that's who people are citing, and they don't even realize it. The military intel people that Sidney Powell claims she had, one of them turned out to be an ex-mechanic. Wasn't a military intel guy. The Kraken unit wasn't a Kraken unit. It was an assignment unit. It had nothing to do with a high-end intelligence unit. So they made a bunch of, and we had been talking about this, and I've been pointing out many of these statements were provably false. They were not. I thought it was just smart. It was dumb as an evidentiary strategy. But, what better way to do a disinformation campaign that, number one, distracts from the real issues that Trump has that are credible and viable. Two, that tars and feathers everyone associated with questioning the election, because with these nutty theories and ideas. And third, you get to take out a bunch of your adversaries. Sidney Powell is going to be discrediting herself. She's going to face a bankrupting lawsuit, and it wouldn't be a surprise if she ends up suspended or disbarred. Lynn Wood is on the same path. Lynn Wood is already looking at getting kicked out of a case where he's representing Carter Page because of what they allege are false accusations made in a bunch of his different affidavits. And it didn't help, and in affidavit cases he was supporting, it didn't help that he submitted an affidavit that, rather than saying under penalty of perjury, actually say, I hereby say this under plenty of perjury.
Hold on. It was a tweet that was going around I did not retweet it because I was not able to verify if it's true. Because
it is. I confirmed it. It's on the docket itself.
Then I need that document, because I said that's too perfect. That would be someone like, changing it, because it would make no sense to have that as a typo. It said under plenty of perjury.
I hereby say these things I verify. These things are true. I mean, it's one of the worst faux pas ever. And I understand typos can happen in the rest, but they've been doing this in all these cases. I mean, how do you keep making mistakes in case after case after case of just basic words, basic plaintiffs, basic names?
Not just that, I made the joke, is like the only way that typo happens is if someone's dictating the affidavit. Like it's the only way that typo happens. But okay, no, so
that's what happens. Woods, all of his ex-partners have left, and he's getting suing, and they're suing him for being a crazy fraud. So he doesn't have the same kind of people around him that he used to. People tell me, oh, he's won all these great cases. To my knowledge, I don't know of a single jury trial he's ever won in the defamation context, ever. But appellate one, I don't know of a single win. And he's going to defend Sidney Powell. If you look at those letters, those are unusual defamation letters. They go through 20, 25 pages in some cases of saying, you said this factually statement. Here it's provably false. And then all they ask, by the way, is retraction. At a minimum, I would respond. I would respond with what evidence I had. Say, here's what evidence I have. Tell me why it's wrong. Because then I'm establishing a record that I'm being fair and trying to do the facts. Instead, Lynn Wood wants to be sarcastic. He says, I read it. It don't mean nothing. Sue me. Sue her. Go ahead.
But what do you
they have to sue now, because they're both going to, these are massive companies with deep pockets, but what state is going to give them a contract unless they sue and prove in court at this point?
Well, so I pull this up so that nobody ever accuses me of being pro-Trump. I'm being accused of being anti-Trump. So that's what I get it from both sides, albeit much less from one side than the other. What are you going to say to people? Because I can see it being a legit strategy. Sue me. I'll depose you. I'll get
sure. I had a client that was doing that for years. He was waging war on Little Debbie because he connected the company that got him fired from a job as a whistleblower to the fact that they could be implicated by it. So he created like Little Debbie, and he took Little Debbie and he made her grow into like Red and Skeleton and all the rest. And his whole goal was he was to get them to sue him. The difference was, one, not many people were paying attention to his accusations. He was a very nice guy, by the way, but they were ignoring him. The second was he didn't have any money. So apparently the MyPillow guy has been giving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to Wood and Powell, and that's just what's publicly known. Who knows how much other money they've been raising, because they've both been raising money off this. And so so it could be millions and millions of dollars. That's part one. Part two is they're in a position where they have to do so in order to keep any business, because the Republicans are why Dominion exists. Democrats generally didn't like them. So what states are going to give any contracts to Dominion or Smartmatic while these allegations are out there? When the allegations were low key, no big deal. They're too big now. They have to get all of the media people to retract. Now, Fox was rushed to basically hit retraction, which was a sign, by the way, that Fox had no confidence in these allegations anymore. But the second aspect is that they're going to have to go through it. And when I was reading the suits, and based on investigation I've done, they're open and shut suits. So they can depose everybody they want, but they're not going to prove the allegations that they have. They're not. In fact, they'll be disproven. And then what will happen is the judgments used against them, they'll have to bankrupt their way out of problems, will be used to suspend and disbar them, just as it's already a threat of we're kicking them out of. Once you're kicked out of one court, you can get kicked out of every court. That's the way that game works. And you have to report it back to the state bar. And again, it's happening not because of there may be political bias involved, but it's because they got caught making statements that people could prove as false. For example, you reviewed that Michigan expert, and just all you had to do was look at his affidavit and tell people what your conclusion would be as a lawyer.
Well, so I mean, I didn't get into the details of the expert report itself, but yeah, it was drafted to be a partisan exhibit in a lawsuit. It employed subjective terminology, making accusations of intent as opposed to factual statements about coding. Now, admittedly, in the report, it talked about coding. I got a ton of emails and DMs from coders saying, you can derive or decipher or divine intent from coding because nothing happens by accident in coding. And I said, that's still, you would just say that this is the way it was coded without saying intentionally, purposefully, with, by design to do this all on purpose. But
by the way, this is the guy that's already been caught lying in affidavits. He claimed that there was a bunch of over voting in Michigan, and it's because he confused precincts in Minnesota with Michigan. I mean, just basic mistakes that a conservative, by the way, outed a power line, which a pro-Trumpist found this, and we're like, oh my goodness. The same guy has been going around for a while telling people that the deep state was started when George Soros, the Muslim Brotherhood, and some others got together in Nazi Germany in 1930s. Okay, that's not what happened. So the guy's into conspiracy kooky stuff. He's a partisan hack. He's someone who will be laughed out of court as a quote unquote expert. If you wanted to do an honest review, get somebody that's an independent tech guy. There's plenty of Democrats that don't like these machines for that matter, but try to find someone that's an independent tech guy that doesn't look so bad that you can just look at his affidavit and say, oh, this will not come across as credible to a judge or a jury. He's drawing conclusions he can't draw. And if he's that partisan and that overt, then he's no longer credible as an expert.
But it's not even that. Like, there was something I didn't say in the video, which I probably could have. It said V2 on the report, which means that there was a V1, which means that it got reviewed and changes were made, and those changes are going to be discoverable as well. But I blame the expert less than I blame the attorney, because if I'm the if I'm the attorney, I say tone it down, just stipulate facts. We don't need this to look like it's a defense note written by your mother.
This has all been the signs of a disinformation campaign. They've had people. It's out of a QAnon world where you pretend someone's a special intel expert, and it turns out he's a former mechanic living in his mama's basement. That we're outed within weeks. And this is who most of Powell and Wood's experts are. They're crocs, they're jokes, they're crackpots, they're conspiracy theorists, they're tin cap nut jobs. So they're embarrassments. There's a reason why the president wanted nothing to do with them affirmatively involved in his lawsuits once he saw what they're up to. So that's why I'm saying in a court when the real facts are tried, they're going to lose bad. Everybody was all excited. This will prove it. Maybe they think that's not how this game is likely to end.
Well, and that's what people think. Well, there's two things, actually. People think when you sue and you get to discovery, it's like a treasure trove. Depending on the nature of the lawsuit, the discovery has to relate to the lawsuit itself. So
you don't get to look at every single thing. It's got to be pertinent. And the problem is what they'll be looking for doesn't exist. And some of the other stuff like code and whatnot, they'll be subject to protective orders. So that will never get out outside of experts. They'll have to hire real experts, not their fake ones that are going to be embarrassed in court. They got set up in such an easy way that now they're in serious risk, and they're still in denial that they're in serious risk.
Well, and let me just highlight this so that people can fully appreciate this. Let's say Dominion sues. And let's just say it goes to discovery. The Powell side, the defense side, comes in and says, well, now we want to open your books. That's not exactly how it would go, because the issue is going to be, what information did you make your allegations on? Not now give us access to your books so we can prove the allegations we've already made publicly, which are the object of the defamation. So that's putting the carriage in front of the horse. So it's not as though strategically it's the beneficial thing to do, because you don't go looking for the supporting evidence after you've been sued in defense discovery.
Right. So and judges are going to be very hostile to both Wood and Powell. So and they may just sue Powell. They may end up adding Wood to the equation. But I mean, it's clear they've thought it through. They're very well-connected firms that are bringing these cases, well-versed in defamation law. Powell's response of an over-the-top "come sue me." I get it. Maybe they really believe it. They're going to get destroyed in court. I mean, they just made ridiculous claims that just were never true. I mean, the Smartmatic was not created by Hugo Chavez. Smartmatic has no tie to Dominion. Dominion had never had a tie to any of those countries. Dominion's no longer even a foreign corporation. Dominion is and it was only a Canadian company then. It didn't receive a bunch of money from China. They confused which UBS bank was involved in a loan transaction. It's a very much deep state, Washington, Wall Street, Carlyle Group, Cerebras-based groups of people. But they got a lot of money, and they'll have no problems litigating it aggressively. And I have no confidence in Powell and Wood's ability to effectively defend themselves. And I think they're at real risk of just getting wiped out.
And people are going to be angry with you, and they're going to be angry with you because they're not going to like what you're saying, or they're not going to like how you're saying it. The reality is, and they're going to say, Powell's going to lose with all of these, these election claims that they might get sued for. They can't win on the standing issues. So what are they to do? And we know you said it, we've talked about it. One thing I want to say right now, 11,262 people watching. Everyone, don't forget, if you thumbs up now, I get to see that number go up in real time, and it's very satisfying. It's that little blue. It should be blue if you've hit it already, but give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down if you don't like what's going on here. But let's just see. I should remind you.